What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into another 216 show. Hopefully, this is recording and we're recording live. Everything's kind of froze up on me again. All right, so what you guys don't know, StreamYard's been kind of messing up on us today. Sorry, camera's been kind of freezing in and out and all that stuff. So I just wanted to say if we get a couple hiccups in here, I apologize. 216 show is one of my fun shows I created where bring in people from Cleveland area talking about Cleveland, talking all about Cleveland. And my special guest today is a former TV broadcaster, host of the Guards Cast, MLB Guards Cast. It is Bryan Shaw. What's going on, brother? How are you
Hey,
doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
I apologize for StreamYard, everything messing up right now. It's
Stuff happens.
glitches in the system.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Stuff happens.
So the
We'll get through
basis
it.
of
For
this,
what it's worth, when I was just gonna say, for what it's worth, when you said that things were freezing up on you, I could still see it on my end. So I don't know if maybe it's just the host that is seeing the issues versus like the broadcast itself.
I will just keep going then until you tell me to stop now. Like, okay, everything's screwed up, and then we'll stop it. All right. So this show, I brought it up. I love doing stuff like this. I love talking Cleveland with people because, for one, I am not from Cleveland. I am a transplant. My family is here now. Growing my family here in Cleveland. I got kids that go to a very gifted school downtown. We live on the west side, not naming it North Olmsted Eagles. But I want to bring people on. I want to talk about Cleveland and showcase this great city for what it is because I want to get different perspectives from everybody. And we've had multiple guests on talking about Cleveland, their experiences here, and all that stuff. And I'm going to put you in the 216 hot seat. We're going to start rattling off some questions about Cleveland here, buddy. You ready?
I'm ready to go. Yeah, like I said, I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be fun. I love Cleveland. I love Northeast Ohio. So I'm a champion for the city. So I think this is going to be great.
All right, bud. We always start our show. You got to rank your favorite teams here in Cleveland. You have the Browns, the Cavs, the Guards. How do you rank your favorite sports teams here in Cleveland?
So right now, as it goes for me, it's Guardians, Cavaliers, and Browns, and that wasn't always true. The Browns were at the top for a very long time. I was a season ticket holder for a few years since I had moved back in 2017. Unfortunately, you thought that they were going to break out of just the mess that they had been for a long time. After the 1-31. You thought like, okay, there was a vision there, right? Like, okay, you
Mm-hmm.
bottom out. There's a vision. You see what they're trying to do, and just feels like it's just perpetual and a mess, and it's just gotten annoying, and then just distractions, and seeing some of your favorite players, Nick Chubb leaving. I know he's been hurt. There's just not a lot for me to be excited about the Browns at the moment. I know people are excited about Shador and the Browns are king in this city, but at least right now, the Browns are at the bottom of my list. And I have a baseball podcast, so love talking baseball. I go to 20 games a season for the Guardians, so baseball is at the top for me, and it's something that I enjoy with my family and getting down to the ballpark in the summertime, and so that's why Guardians are at the top.
All right. So, what are some of your all-time favorites, players-wise, for each team?
Each team, so Joe Thomas definitely for the Browns. I had graduated around the same time Joe did, so kind of going into broadcasting and then Joe joining the Browns and being drafted. There was just a connection that I felt, and then him being with the team for as long as he was, and uh, I just always loved Joe Thomas and his work ethic, and him being a part of the Browns. Nick Chubb was another one. He's just one of those guys that just a workhorse and kind of brought back the running back position with a couple of other players in the NFL. So really loved Nick Chubb. In terms of Indians, I grew up in the 90s era Indians, so Manny Ramirez and Charles Nagy and Jim Thome and Albert, all those guys. I mean, everybody's got their favorites, and Carlos Baerga. I remember, I had a friend, and when they traded Carlos Baerga, he basically swore off the team, and he was interviewed on the news and it brought it up. It was like 3 years later, and still bringing it up that he's mad about the Carlos Baerga trade. And then I think a lot of people from my era too. Same thing with the Cavaliers. We all practiced free throws in our front yard like Mark Price, and shot threes like Mark. And I do really love the current Cavaliers team. And a lot of those players are really, really likable guys. Just watching them all together and the way that they get along, Jared Allen and Donovan and Darius and all those guys, they're just a lot of fun to watch, and love their energy. Obviously they've had a couple of disappointing finishes the last couple of years. I've been to several of those playoff games. I understand if the core four doesn't stay together, but it would be tough to watch them get broken up, just because I really do like the camaraderie and like watching them play.
I do too. This is the post LeBron era that I kind of love the most. The first one, it was like, we're not doing anything. We're just, we just suck. And then now it's like they actually did it right. And we actually have good players in. And it's like, you hate to see them go, but like you said, core four, something's got to kind of a little bit shake up and figure it out from there. Now, being in broadcasting, everything else, I don't know how many people you have met and anything else, but is there a favorite person sports-wise that you have met or that you want to meet?
Yeah, one of the most unfortunate things of a person that I wanted to meet and I never got to, unfortunately, was Jim Donovan. Being from Cleveland and listening to him, and he had a little bit more. I know a lot of people have a lot of connections to broadcasters, but I went to college in Vermont, so I wasn't able to watch the Browns games. So during my college years, I was really only able to listen, because the NFL had an audio stream package for like $80 for the season, and you could listen to every game. So I listened to just Jim Donovan all of those years, and I really wish I would have had an opportunity to meet him, because he kind of inspired me a little bit in terms of being a broadcaster. But one of the coolest people I did meet right before he got traded, I ran into George Niang at out in Lakewood, and a lot of people were talking to him, taking pictures with him, and I just said hi and introduced myself. And then this was when he was doing his post games with Tristan. So I had asked him, I said, are you trying to get like a resume reel together? Are you trying to get into broadcasting? Like, is that something that you're thinking about post career? And he kind of joked. He's like, oh, I'm too young for that. I'm not thinking about post career yet. But then he did mention that, yeah. And then, I asked him, if you talk to other NBA guys that have gone into broadcasting, and my advice to him was just be himself. And I said, you'll do all right. Don't try to be anybody else. Don't try to be fake, because people pick up on that. Just be yourself. So it was a really cool conversation. And then I did run into Jose Ramirez one time out in spring training with my wife. And he was so sweet to her and super nice, and, really grateful to that, he was excited that there were fans that knew him and wanted to be near him. And, because sometimes you hear stories that guys are jerks to people or don't appreciate when fans talk to them. And, I didn't have that. I didn't have that at all. It was a really cool experience to just say hello to Jose and shake his hand and tell him how much we appreciate him.
God, I'm jealous right now. I would actually love to just sit down, have a cerveza with Jose Ramirez, and just go through some stories. Because just watching him talk crap to third baseman while he's in the dugout is like my favorite thing to watch. It's like he's seriously just sitting there talking crap to everybody.
I would love to listen to, I'd love to sit next to him in the dugout and like have him narrate what he's watching, what he's looking for. His nuance and his smarts when it comes to baseball, I think would just be fascinating to hear from him.
God, that'd be great. All right, you are a former TV broadcaster, meteorologist. God, I said it right without messing it up the first time. Podcaster now. What's it like being in that background, that area, and also some advice you can give some other people coming up that are into podcasting and doing some other things?
Yeah, so I started off after college. I went to college knowing I wanted to be in broadcasting and in meteorology. And after 14 years, I decided it was time to move on to something else, and got into the corporate world and doing website analytics now. So a complete pivot. But I did enjoy my time in broadcasting, and it allowed me to see different parts of the country. It allowed me to appreciate Cleveland more. I really wanted to get back home to Cleveland. I was able to accomplish that and be on TV here at Channel 5 and at Channel 8 briefly until I was able to pivot into something else. And so really grateful for that opportunity. I think in terms of what was that like, I think people think it's more glamorous than it really is, especially in local news. The hours are really tough. Working weekends, working nights, working mornings, inconsistent schedules, missing out on events, uh, just so many of those things that you don't really get to live a normal life. And it's not because you're in the public eye or anything like that. It's just because the schedule is demanding and it's tough. You're always on call and, doing things for social media. So it just got to be a little draining and it seems as if the industry is shrinking in terms of
Mm-hmm.
television broadcasting. And so I was seeing people that weren't being able to retire on their terms or get to, to the point where they were able to retire in TV. And so I just felt like it was time to make a pivot. In terms of podcasting, it's really just something that I wanted to do as a hobby. I did meet some people as I was looking for a new career, and then, met my co-host, Mike Voorhees, and they invited me on to their existing podcast, and we just hit it off. And really what part of that is too is in terms of local media, and it is dominated by the Browns, and I don't feel like that there's a whole lot of of, of baseball coverage. Now, granted, we only record once every 2 weeks because I feel like if you recorded, every other day or something like that, it would get rather monotonous on what you're talking about in terms of baseball. But so I wanted to. There was just information out there that I feel like I wasn't getting, so I was finding it myself, and then I wanted to relay that to people, and that's kind of a lot of what I do on Twitter as well when it comes to baseball. Is just when I find things interesting, when I find statistics that are interesting, I want to put it out there, and that's kind of what I do with my podcast. In terms of advice, when it comes to broadcasting, I think the industry is changing. I don't know if I really have good advice right now in terms of broadcasting because I don't know where it's going. I don't know what it's going to be. And I don't know if I'm on the forefront of that any longer. I think if in terms of meteorology, you're seeing a lot of people go into the TikTok space and the YouTube space, and they're being really successful there. In terms of that realm, podcasting, TikTok, YouTube, all of those places, I think if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. Be yourself, and create good content. I think people are drawn to good content and good information, and it takes time. I mean, our podcast gets like 100 listens, every time we go on, and I'm grateful for those 100 listens, but, you're not always going to go viral. And so, do it as a hobby, do it for fun. And if it takes off, great. And then if it doesn't, you haven't sold anything to get into that, to get into that space.
Yeah, and that's great advice, because like I started this as a hobby and still something I love to do because I love talking to people and everything else. I do have a follow-up question on the weather. I work outside all the time. I work at a golf course that I cannot name now due to certain parameters. I will maybe tell you off air afterwards. But we get so excited when we see thunderstorms, everything else rolling, especially for our industry. I need to know what your reaction is when thunder snow happens, because
Oh,
I get giddy like a schoolgirl. Just I see the lightning, I hear the thunder, and I'm like, here we go, thunder snow time.
yeah. I love thunder snow too. It is a cool, really, really cool phenomenon. Like that's isolated to really kind of the Great Lakes region. And just it is really cool. So I had made a GIF. I think I still have it. I had taken one of it was just layers with our weather equipment, where there was the background, it's night, it's snowy. Then I added the lightning layer, and I took the fire Elmo, the fire Elmo.
Yeah.
And I cut him out and I put him in the front of it. So it's basically Thunder Snow Elmo that I have a GIF of that I created that I would sometimes, put out there, because it's just, him holding his hands up like this, and you've got the snow coming down and the lightning. But I love thunder snow as well. It is a really, really cool phenomenon. Same thing with like grapple. Grapple is unique to this area.
All right, I don't need to hear about the grapple. The grapple can go away. Working in the grapple is no fun whatsoever.
Yeah, I get that. I get that, and being out in it, and it stings. There was a couple of football games that I've been into some gnarly weather, and one of them just the ice pellets when you're in the upper deck hitting you in the face off the lake. It can be tough.
That's what I try to tell my family. Like what's it doing up there? I'm like, they call it grapple. They're like, what the heck is that? I'm like, it's pretty much ice. It is raining ice on you. That's all it is.
Yeah. It's not quite sleet. It's not quite freezing rain. It's a little bit different.
It's something not fun. I know that for a fact. All right. So being from Cleveland, Parma, Normandy. All right. What are some of your favorite places here in Cleveland to go to?
So you mentioned golf. I've gotten to be a pretty big golfer in my later 30s here. And so I do like checking out all the golf courses. There was I've gotten into the golf Instagram memes and all of that. And there was one where by longitude and latitude, we are in like just this hot spot of golf courses. There's just a ton of golf courses here in Northeast Ohio. So I've been doing a lot of golfing. I spent some time up at Catawba and up at the islands. Go up there. I mentioned that I have a 20-game package for the Guardians, so I spent a lot of time downtown going to the baseball games. Went to 10 Cavaliers games this year. So a lot of sporting events, a lot of golf, just being downtown and, being around people. I really enjoy, especially when there's big events going on. I really do enjoy just that energy that Cleveland brings to those kinds of things. When it's opening day or playoff games, it's really fun.
All right. What are some of your favorite events here in Cleveland? Now, for me, I have found out I am a sucker for pickles. I have been to the Pickle Fest. I don't know how many times now. Hands down, I love that place. Is there some events that you love here?
So I'm counting Put in Bay in the Sandusky area as part of Cleveland, like it's close enough. If you haven't gone to Whiskey Light in Put in Bay, it's the start of the season. That's a pretty cool event that I've started to go to each year. Both of the All-Star games, when we had the MLB All-Star game and the NBA All-Star game, I thought the city just did an incredible job with both of those, and those were so much fun. I've gone to some of the rib fests here. That's always a really, really good time is the rib festivals in the summertime. There is an event that I've started to go to with my friends each year. They are members of St. Bart's, and they do this basically this man event. It's you get a steak, you get potatoes, and they have all these open grills, and you just grill your own steak. And just hanging out, and they have taps, and they used to cook steaks for everybody, but then too many people were complaining because people like their steak cooked differently, so they just give it to you now, and they give it to you, and there's all these grills. So it's just it's a really fun fundraiser where just a lot of guys hanging out, cooking their steaks together, drinking some beers, and then the sides are provided by the church. So that's a really fun event as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to look into that one, man. All right, so Cleveland is known for its great metro parks, for restaurants, for everything else. Why don't you name me a couple hidden gems here in Cleveland that you like to go to, whether it be food, whether it be the metro parks, whether it be anything down in the art district? Give us a couple of hidden gems that you like to go to.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by the Metro Parks golf. I think the courses are beautifully maintained. I do go to Seneca quite a bit because I like that it's 3 different 9s that they rotate into the 18. And but I got to talk about Parma. I always feel like Parma is kind of like the Cleveland of Cleveland. And what I mean by that is outside of Cleveland, when you travel, everybody always talks bad about Cleveland and how crappy they think it is. And, how awful Ohio is, because the kids call things that are just lame Ohio now. But I feel like that aspect is the same thing happening in Cleveland, but it's about Parma. Everybody in Cleveland dumps on Parma all the time. Like outside of Cleveland, they dump on Northeast Ohio. So I grew up in Parma. I didn't plan to move back, but I'm really glad that I did. And it's one of the few spots I think around here outside of maybe Lakewood that has as much local places to eat and drink. It's not chain centric. It's not, there's not Applebee's everywhere. There's not, Longhorns. It's a lot of local places. And so a bunch of the spots on State Road, basically from Pleasant Valley to Brook Park, any of those spots are great. My personal favorites, if you've ever gone to Sloppy Bob's is a cool spot, and really good wings. Love it there. They built a patio a couple of years ago, which was really nice. And then it was closed for a couple of years. Thankfully, it's reopened, and then they redid their menu. Is just down the road from Sloppy Bob's, Tradesman Tavern, one of the best patios, and an incredible food. Really, really like it there. So if you go to any of those places, you might see me on occasion because I do frequent those spots. My wife likes to go down to Little Italy every once in a while, and we check out some of those places, some of those restaurants there. But in terms of hidden gems, I have to shout out Parma and just the little local dive bars that have some really, really great food. If you like bowling, there's the Red Circle Bowling right on State Road that has some really good food as well. A little bit ways from Parma, I think it's Parma Heights technically. Post and Beam, if you've ever been there, they have really, really good burgers there. So there's a lot of nice divey bars with just good drink, good food, and I love those spots.
You said Sloppy Bob's, and I got all excited because on my Facebook feed, I get pictures of that place all the time. And I've been trying to tell my co-host that we need to get back out for live and out at this place because as a bigger guy that I am, and as much as I love food, you name a place, Sloppy Bob's, I have got to try your food.
Yeah, it's good. They started off with a real a smaller menu because their kitchen's not huge. I think it was basically just kind of pizzas to start off, but they've expanded their menu, and the bartenders are super cool there. Like I said, they built on a patio, so there's a bunch of extra seating. They have outdoor seating out in the back now, but love that spot. Tons of TVs, cool atmosphere. Yeah, check it out. It's definitely worth it. I recommend. Well, I recommend the wings. Wings are really good. They have what they call the fat pizza. So and then there's smaller ones too. But yeah, it's a good spot.
I can't wait. You got me all excited now. All right, so it's game day. Either you're down on the lake, in the ballpark, watching it on TV. What's your game day drink?
So I'm pretty big into craft beers. Back in the craft beer boom of what was that, like 2013, 2014, I was living in Buffalo, and there was big craft boom beer there. And then that's continued. I occasionally brew my own as well. I do some home brews with some of my friends. So I like to stick with the craft beers, but I really appreciate that they're all coming out with like light IPAs, and they're all doing kind of their like Bud Light, Miller Light equivalents. Great Lakes has the Cold Rush, and then you see what the Leaf Man, like all of them kind of have that like light, post cut the grass kind of beer that's just refreshing. But so I stick with I usually go with one of those, like the Light Raja. I really like right now. Fatheads is a really good beer. So and the ballpark has a ton of those. They've got the brew kettles and the Fatheads and Great Lakes. So that's my drink of choice. I one of the real big tall ones. My wife and I both have one of those koozies, the real big koozies that we got from the Guardians City Edition, City Connect jersey ones with the cool logo. So we have a couple of those, but that's I'm a beer guy.
All right. Well, here's the question that has been getting everybody and all the buzz ever since we started asking this question. All right. We have two mustards here in Cleveland. Which one's your go-to mustard? Is it Burtman's or is it the original Stadium mustard?
So I don't think this was on purpose, but it's just always been Stadium. I don't know why. It's just always been Stadium. That's just what I gravitate to. So a funny story about that. Back in college, like I said, I went to college in Vermont, so everybody there is a New England fan. The Red Sox had just won the World Series. The Patriots were doing their thing. And let me tell you that those fans are just the most annoying fans, especially when they're winning and winning everything. But we were talking about like going to games. And I said, well, a big reason why, you go to a game, you got to get a hot dog because you got to get the Stadium mustard. And they were like, what are you talking about? What is Stadium mustard? I'm like, it's a brown mustard that's special to stadiums. Like, what do you mean you don't know what Stadium mustard is? I didn't know that was a Cleveland only thing for a while. I had no idea. And then fast forward maybe a year or two later, a friend of mine, one of my roommates, was flying out of Boston. He happens to find a receipt of in Boston airport of somebody who was at Hopkins, and all they purchased was 2 bottles of Stadium mustard. It was like, what are the odds in Boston he finds a receipt from Hopkins and it's Stadium mustard? So he brought it to me because he's like, this is wild. But yeah, it's always been Stadium mustard. I don't have a particular reason for that to be the case. It just always was.
Yeah, that's kind of been the astounding answer on the show. You even had guys that don't like mustard that picked stadium mustard. So that's hey, I'm a mustard fan anyways, especially when it comes to hot dogs. I'm not a huge ketchup guy on hot dogs, and stadium mustard's always been great to me. So that's why I want to get everybody's perspective, because there is two. I mean, it's either Burtman's or you're using stadium mustard, and those kind of seem like the only two that are here in Cleveland that everybody uses. So
Yeah, like I know some people do like the Dijons. It's just not the same.
it's
Even
not
other
even close
other
to the
brown
same.
mustards, not the same. No,
Like we had
not the
to,
same.
we have people from Guatemala that I work with now, and we introduced them to stadium mustard. It floored them. They're like, "What
Really?
is this?" Oh yeah, they're like,
That's
"What is
fascinating.
this?" So, but we're getting them very Americanized. They're loving it here. So, um, all right. Next one, we do it on best city on the east side, best city on the west side.
So I'm not doing this to pander to you. I do have a bunch of friends there, but the Olmsted area, I do really appreciate. North Olmsted, Olmsted Falls, and I spent some time there as a kid, and uh, they also have their pockets of some cool local spots
Mm-hmm.
in Olmsted. So I do appreciate that area. And then I guess on east side, uh, I'd have to say Menor. I like going up to the lake and being up on that side of the lake, and I know that's Lake County and that's a little bit farther away, but um, I don't spend a lot of time on like in the eastern part of Cuyahoga County, so I don't really have a choice on that end of the county. So I got to go with Menor for east side.
All right. And you already gave us the underrated city. I'm pretty sure you're going to say it's Parma.
Yeah, it's Parma. It's it's
Okay.
it's Parma. Like it's such an underdog town, and kind of like how Cleveland's the underdog city. When it comes to the United States, Parma's the underdog of Northeast Ohio, and it's also the same, I think, because it's got like a bad reputation from stuff that happened in like the 70s or something like that. If you're listening, I really I would say just come out here. Come to like the Rib Fest that, well, I think it just happened, or
It did. I was there. It was
but
awesome.
yeah, like just come check it out. Come to one of the local mom and pop shops. We have a lot of really good pizza out here too,
Mm-hmm.
in Parma. A lot of really good pizza places. So it's the same as when I travel or when I lived outside of Cleveland and people would make a bad comment. I would ask them, "When was the last time you've been there? Or have you been there at all?" And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time it's like, "Well, I haven't," or "It's been a long time." Like, come check out Parma. Parma's pretty cool.
All right. Now, you go to the ballpark. I do have to ask you this. We got two more questions for you. What's your best ballpark food out there? Take away the hot dog, because everybody goes for a
Ooh.
hot dog. What's your best ballpark food at the Cleveland Guardians there at Progressive Field?
So I do like any of the nachos. I feel like that's a nice another nice ballpark food. Just easy to eat, and for me and my wife, we just pick at it a little bit and eat a couple of things. But anything too that comes on a pretzel bun, that's right up my alley. Really,
Pretzel
really
bun fan, huh?
enjoy the pretzel bun. But I actually don't eat a ton at the ballpark outside of like the occasional hot dog. I know there's a lot of really good food, but I do like a lot of the spots that are around the ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and it is a little bit cheaper. I was really disappointed when the Winking Lizard closed in Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
I did hear, I don't know if it's a rumor or if it's happening, but I did hear that there is something going in there soon to replace it, which is good news. But I go to City Tap and spots around there, and Whistling Keg just expanded, and they've got food. So I try to check out some of the local spots, and a lot of them have really good food there too. So that's typically when I go to a game. I usually try to get food beforehand.
All right. All right. Being a former TV broadcaster, everything else, who is your favorite Cleveland personality here in Cleveland?
I have to say that, growing up here in Cleveland and then becoming a meteorologist, obviously I was drawn to the meteorologists that were here, and Dick Goddard and Andre Bernier also inspired me to be in broadcasting. And I interned with Andre, and he helped mentor me when I was in high school, and I was one of his weather watchers. So they really did inspire me in my career and help me along the way. But I like people that are a champion for the city, who talk well about Cleveland, especially ones that have kind of grown beyond being maybe a local personality.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say Mike the Miz.
Okay.
I love that guy's energy. I love that he loves Cleveland. I can't believe he's still wrestling into his 40s. Like, good for him, because he's only a couple years older than me, and I know I wouldn't be able to do any of that and get my butt whooped as much as he does. So, anytime you see him on shows and podcasts and things, he's always talking great about Cleveland, and that's my kind of guy. So I wanted to come up with something a little what I thought was going to be unique for that answer, and so I'm going to pick Mike the Miz.
That's fine. Hey, from real world to where he's at now, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
that shows how old we are.
Yeah, I remember him being on that show, and then he had that like country accent when he was the Miz. Yeah. I definitely remember that. And then he was on the Tough Enough competition. That's what got him in. So yeah, good for him.
All right. So last question before we hand it over to you. What's your best Cleveland sports moment?
So, I was thinking about this, and I don't want to say that they all came in the last year, but I've had some really fun moments. I had mentioned that I used to have season tickets for the Browns, and I don't any longer, but I still go to occasionally a couple of games with my buddy who has kept his season tickets. And the Browns Steelers game this past year, with the snow coming down and being in the snow globe, that was so much fun. Like, it didn't matter on that day how bad the Browns were as a whole. Just the energy in that stadium, the fun of the snow, Jameis just going out there doing whatever, the sad Steelers fans, like, that was such a fun moment. And it's going to be one of those games where I'm never going to forget. But then I was also at two Guardians playoff games this year, one of which was Game 5 against the Tigers. That grand slam against Skubal was just an incredibly electric moment. And then, running that through the rest of the game, it did get a little tough in there. We had a couple of Tigers fans sitting behind us, and they were younger guys, and they're just mouthing off the whole time and mouthing off the whole game. And then there's other people that were, chirping back at them, and they did not stay much longer after the grand slam. They ducked out early. And then I was also at the Yankees walk-off game in the playoffs with David Fry hitting the home run and John Kenzie Noel. And that one was a little bit different because the energy was just so low at before that. Like, talk about a roller coaster of emotion, from like the lowest of lows to the highest of highs. Like, oh my goodness, they pulled this off, tied it up, winning it, just incredible moments that, like those are three games that in 10, 15 years, I feel like, I'm not necessarily going to remember what happened in the season, or like what the outcome of was the season, but I'm always going to remember those games and those moments. So, it is funny that, like, maybe just because they're recent, but picking those games is yeah, those were some incredible moments. I was also, though, I'll pick a Cavs one too. The game where Strus chucked that, like, not quite a full court shot, but that 3/4 court shot and the buzzer beater. That was a regular season game, but that was still an incredible moment, and that was a fun one too. Just to see something like that again, where you're like, well, this game's over, I gotta start packing it up here, and then just all of a sudden you win. You're like, well, I guess we gotta celebrate now. Like, this is crazy. So that was another really cool moment.
Well, hey, Bryan, thank you so much for your time sitting in the 216 hot seat, answering me, letting me pepper you with questions and everything else. But it's your turn now. Let everybody know where they can find you, all your socials, what you got going on, and floor's yours, my man.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, WXSHAW. It's shorthand for weather. So I just hung on to that. WX is shorthand for weather. So it's just, it was an easy Twitter handle, 6 characters, Weather Shaw. And I just never changed it. I primarily talk about baseball now on there. And like I said, put out statistics and, just things that interest me. And I still report on the weather. If there's storms in the area, I try to cover severe weather when I can and keep people informed. Interesting climatological statistics when it comes to Cleveland of, how many days it's been over 90 or, how many days of this. I also tend to try to like debunk, I guess, common misperceptions. I think that comes from just living outside of Cleveland. And it's like, when everybody talks bad about Cleveland, it's like, well, why do you think it's bad? Like, you sure it's bad? You sure Parma's bad? Or, you sure the weather here is terrible? Just different things. It's mostly just what I find interesting and what I think other people might find interesting. I still do maintain a Facebook page, just Bryan Shaw on Facebook. Where I post our podcast clips and then, like I said, occasional weather stuff. So our podcast is the MLB Guardcast. We do have YouTube, which we record, and then Spotify and Apple. And we record usually once every 2 weeks because, like I said earlier, I feel like any more than that, and things can get a little redundant when there hasn't been a lot of change. Even today's episode that we recorded that should be up as people are listening to this. We took we were a little bit longer because I had gone on vacation, but even then we were still kind of talking about the same things that we had done just 3 weeks ago. There wasn't a lot of change in terms of what we were discussing. It's just the offense needs to be better. This guy needs to step up, or they need to replace this guy, and they haven't done it yet. So, that's what we do. But we try to give some insight on. We've had some guests. We've had Jim Rosenhaus that has come on the past couple of years to do help us do a little season preview when he's been out in spring training, which super grateful for. Marco Lanave has come on to the same thing to talk about some of the minor league guys. So, those are episodes worth checking out. I do put them in the title just to get some different insight and different perspectives on especially early season stuff and, who's not necessarily on somebody's radar. But we get into the nitty gritty, I think, a little bit more. If you're wanting to get into like advanced analytics and in baseball and learn more about those kinds of things, we do talk about some of the more advanced stats. So if that's something that's interesting to you, love to have people come give us a listen. I really appreciate it. And I'm active on social media. I'm active on Twitter. If you've got weather questions, if you want to talk baseball, just try to be respectful to people. I know, it can get a little dicey on social media sometimes. And that goes for our local meteorologists as well. Like, occasionally people get mad at the messengers when it comes to the weather. And, it's a tough gig trying to forecast around here, and I think they do a really great job overall. You have to understand how big our area is for broadcasting, and they've got like 2.5 minutes, and they got to talk about 11 counties or 13 counties worth of weather. And anybody who lives here knows that the weather in Menor is not the weather in Avon, is not the weather in Akron, is not the weather in Canton. And so to really get all that nuance in there in a short amount of time is sometimes difficult. And the other part of it is that sometimes with the weather systems that we have here, 5 miles makes a huge difference when it comes to lake effect snow, when it comes to pop-up thunderstorms. If there's a pop-up thunderstorm, one spot's getting a downpour, another spot's probably sunny. And in terms of like forecasting that, it's really impossible to do. Like, you can get a general idea of where storms might pop up or where an individual one is going to pop up. That's impossible to say. Think of it this way. So if you took your garden hose and you pointed it up in the air, you would know, okay, the raindrops, all those water drops from your garden hose are all going to fall in this general vicinity, right? But you wouldn't be able to tell me where each drop is going to fall. If you just did that experiment on yourself, just put your hose up in the air and just watch how the raindrops fell. That's kind of like how pop-up thunderstorms are, where there's a randomness to it, and the way they fall, it's very scattered. So pay attention to those kinds of words too when you're listening to weather. Is it scattered thunderstorms? Is it a line of storms where that's easier to time out because it's something that's moving through? Is this a bigger system where it's going to rain for a few days? There's a lot of nuance in there that if you pay attention, and it is a good meteorologist that explains those differences, you are better off than just trying to get the weather off your phone, because the weather off your phone is just a computer model. And it's not going to have that nuance, and it's not able to tell you an update in real time and all of those things. So that's my pitch for our local meteorologists that I think are really great. And don't give them a hard time, but listen closely to what they have to say, and then things will be a little bit easier on you.
All right, bud. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
This is another episode of the 216 Show. Stay tuned for our next one coming up. I'll have another guest here loaded up soon, and we will see you then. Thank you all for watching, and we will see